Hey guys, it's Names and Numbers. In this episode, we're going to be discussing the most recent events of Andy Dalton finding his way to the Dallas Cowboys. So I think Mr. Mr. David Hodge is going to take us away.
All right. So Andy Dalton signed a one-year deal recently for $7 million. And today we're going to discuss whether or not we're thinking that's, like a power move by the Cowboys, whether or not we think he's actually going to start, or that's just trying to make Dak Prescott sweat, so to speak, and whether or not that's just kind of leverage by the Cowboys. For me personally, I think Dak Prescott will eventually sign his franchise tender. I think he will be the starter week one for the Cowboys. But yeah, I do think the Cowboys are trying to make a power move and send a message to Dak Prescott and his camp, so to speak. I think that, I think Dak will be the starter week one, but I think Andy Dalton was a signing that was probably influenced by Mike McCarthy. Something tells me that he may actually prefer having the red rifle or the beige pistol, you can call him, Andy Dalton in Dallas. I think he's obviously a serviceable backup, but he can also start in the NFL. He has some really good years in Cincinnati. He brought them to 4 playoff appearances, so he's a very capable quarterback. He lost all of them all. Yes, he lost all of them, but I think Mike McCarthy.
Don't forget that.
That's true, but Cincinnati's kind of a dysfunctional organization.
Yeah. Oh, mostly those losses are probably not on Andy Dalton at all.
That's true.
I could probably
perfect.
name
I remember that one.
Yeah, I can name a few people, but it's the Bengals, so I don't feel bad for him.
I remember his first playoff appearance was, pretty subpar, and then the rest, you can't really blame him. But you're right. He lost all 4 of his playoff appearances. You're totally right, Aaron. But I think Andy Dalton, he's a good quarterback, and I think Mike McCarthy isn't necessarily all in for Dak Prescott and the foreseeable future. I think he's all in for this season, and he wants to see him be the starter for this year. But I think, that's kind of a strategic move by McCarthy. I think his fingerprints are all over this move. I think if Dak, just signs the tender and then plays this one season, I think the Cowboys would be comfortable with moving Andy Dalton in the future if Dak doesn't come back after the season. What do you guys think?
Let's back up there. The power move you're talking about, I totally agree with you. The power move, because this whole offseason, with Dak Prescott putting up the numbers that he did, a lot of people saying that's garbage time because they were getting blown out and he kept passing and passing and passing. That's a good thing to think about. But ultimately, I think he's a pretty decent quarterback and he fits into their starting lineup pretty well. The fact that they're kind of putting him on the back burner and giving him the franchise tag. They gave him the franchise tag before they actually expressed interest in signing Andy Dalton. So they already had that in their mind. I think leaves Dak a bad taste in his mouth. But I don't know if this is McCarthy or if it's Jerry Jones, because Jerry Jones is the one that signs the check. And he says his hand don't cramp when he signs checks. So why is his hand cramping now in this particular moment? It's interesting to kind of unfold. But one thing, I think Andy Dalton has a house that's close to Dallas. I don't know if that kind of plays into the fact, because Jerry Jones is kind of a family-oriented owner, which I kind of respect. So that could possibly be one scenario, but it's really interesting power moves. Dallas loves to be in some kind of news, whether it's good news or bad news. So Jerry is kind of just, is kind of savoring all, over all this stuff. So interesting. I don't know if it's the head coach or if it's Jerry, because there's been talks that Jerry has taken over and overridden and made decisions that the coach should have made, which he has every right to do because he's the owner. But I think it's interesting with the power move. So
I get you, Tom. I just think Jerry believes in Dak to a certain point. He's not going to pay him like a top tier quarterback because he knows that he's not. I think Jerry believes in him to probably like 30 to 32 million, but it sounds like Dak wants somewhere between 36 and 40, which I don't think Jerry's willing to spend, especially with all the contracts he's handed out to everybody else on that team. So Andy Dalton's kind of there to reel in Dak to agree to the deal before the season, or if not, go ahead with Andy Dalton. And I think Jerry's secure enough in the rest of the offense that Andy won't make that team slip anymore.
True. I mean, if you see the receiving core that Dallas has now,
Right.
like if Dalton's in there, I think he'd fit really well. I don't see how you can't with the receiving core that the Dallas Cowboys will be going into the season with. But yeah, I agree. I think Dalton was chosen and brought to Dallas to kind of get Dak sweating, like to put him in his place. Like if you're going to be a starting quarterback, you need to work harder and put up more numbers and get the wins. And if not, and if you don't like it, then we're not afraid to replace you because your backup is a former starting quarterback. So
yeah,
Dak should be ready.
and to like the scenario, like there's so many scenarios that you can play into your head. So it's like I think Dak, like David said, is going to be the starting quarterback for the start of this 2020 season. But if he gets hurt, and he's hurt at least for 3 games, I honestly think Andy's going to take reins of that Dallas team. And if he does get the chance, he will take the starting job. And I feel like Dak will be on another team next season.
Wow.
But so that means that both you and Dave, so you just think that Dak's going to show up under the franchise tag, or do you think they're going to get a long-term deal done prior to the season? So it sounds like you think, Tom, that he's just going to sign the franchise tag and play under it for this year and then see what happens after the season?
Yes, I think as of right now and what's been going on in the past with Dallas, very, very strict on what they're offering Dak based off his value and the numbers that he's produced. Dak thinks that he deserves the highest contract right with the top tier quarterbacks. To me, honestly, I don't think he's performed to those magnitude of quarterbacks. So I don't think they're going to budge on a deal, especially a long-term deal. I think that they're just going to they're going to continue with the franchise tag and not offer him a deal. And Dak's I think Dak only has 2 options, to take it or leave it. And I think that he's going to take it and play.
Yeah. Tom, to your point, and Aaron, to your question, I think Dak is going to sign for this season, but I don't think it's going to be a long-term extension made this year. I think it's going to be like make it or break it kind of season. I think Dak will be the starter. I think he will play for the season under a 1-year contract. But, yeah, I'm not sure what's going to happen in the future. But correct me if I'm wrong, I think Dak was like top 5 for passing yards last year. Is that correct, Aaron?
Yeah, that's what happens when you're down all the time, Dave.
Yeah. They call that Mike. Who is it? Shannon Sharp said that's all garbage time. He said all their stats.
I think he was like top 3. He could have been like, I think he was number 1 for passing yards. Is that true, or is it just top 3? Or
I think it was, wasn't he?
I think he led the league in passing yards last year. Which
I think it was either him or Jameis. They're both over 5,000.
See, the fact that Jameis is in there, like, yeah, it just, yeah, like Dak's a capable quarterback. He's a great leader. Like he has a big arm. He's very accurate. But yeah, whether or not he's the long-term franchise guy is kind of up there.
He's not a difference maker. That's the only thing. He's not a difference maker, so I don't think Jerry should give him 36 a year when you extended everyone else. That's why I was saying to you guys when we were doing the draft, if say that CeeDee Lamb wasn't there or whoever else they're looking for I think a linebacker too. I think unless they didn't like Jordan Love, why not get a rookie scale quarterback on the books who has a good arm, actually probably has a better arm than Dak, ship Dak out, try and get a second or first or something from someone to trade Dak and then just kind of go along with that. Because I don't think Dak's actually outperformed as far as what he's actually done. I think you have the great running game, great offensive line. The defense was fantastic, 2 years ago? Last year, it was kind of average, but he hasn't really done anything that has been outstanding where he deserves that mid-30s each year for the contract.
Yeah. And just to fact check Dave, because, numbers with Dave. So Jameis Winston actually took the passing yard title. He had 5,109 yards, and Dak had 4,902 yards.
Okay.
Wow. So he didn't take the title.
Gotcha.
And, I mean, some people can say that was the offensive coordinator's play calling with the reason why they're down so much, because I heard some stat like for over 60% of the time on every first down, they would run it with Ezekiel Elliott, and everyone knew it was coming. So it was just like they would put themselves in a hole every possession that they had.
It's not hard to defend against something when you know it's coming.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and the fact that their offensive line had injuries last year. Zeke held out, so he wasn't in the best shape when he first came back. And no one really believes in Dak's arm until he proves it during the game. So they're going to stack the box until he can prove them wrong. So I don't think that's not helping any of the situations. So that's kind of how they got off to a good start last year. I think they were 3-1 or 2-1, but they played
3-1. Yeah.
They played within your division, which we all know isn't the best.
Yeah,
You
played the Giants.
You can just say it's shit. It's okay.
All right, it's shit. It's probably the worst division in the league.
It was shit.
Yeah, definitely.
Exactly. Yeah, you're right. So I remember there are so many people jumping on that bandwagon saying they're going to be a Super Bowl caliber team. They're 3-1, but they played the Giants, the Redskins, the Dolphins, and then I think the Eagles.
Well, they're going to win the division this year, though, just because that division never has the same winner 2 years in a row.
I think
the Eagles last year.
Since 2004. Yeah, since 2004, I think it's going to be Cowboys.
Yeah, I don't think we've seen Dak in a high pressure close game. I think the last high pressure close game was against the Eagles last season and determined who's going to go to the playoffs or not. And I don't think they didn't close out that game. So I think they, like Aaron mentioned, we haven't seen Dak in a position like that where it's the game's on the line and he needs to win it. They've always been down, and that's where he gets his stats and his numbers.
Yeah.
For that. So. And
in the close games against, if you go back 2 years ago, with the Saints Cowboys game in Dallas, it's the defense that really saved the day on that. It's not like Dallas was scoring a bunch of points, moving the ball on them. It was really just the defense holding Drew Brees and that offense down that really won that game. Or if you go to the Eagles game, last game of the season last year, even though it was in Philadelphia, hostile territory, the Eagles had no receivers. Like Skyler could have played tight end for him and probably could have gotten a couple catches on him. So, I mean,
boy.
and Brandon Dak was dealing with a shoulder injury too, but he's got to at least do something.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Colin Cowherd kind of talked about how Dak didn't have the best stats against playoff teams last year. And the full Cowboys game that I watched, besides the Cowboys games against the Giants, was Giants versus Patriots. It was America's Game of the Week, right before Thanksgiving. And I know it was rainy. I know it was in Foxborough, but Dak looked awful that game. I don't know if you watched that game. And that was kind of the make it or break it point in the season. And yeah, you could tell they kept showing Jerry Jones in the press box, and he was just really displeased with Dak's performance and with Jason Garrett totally. But, yeah.
I mean, Jason Garrett, that's a whole nother topic that we can talk a lot about. But
he's the new Giants offensive coordinator now.
Yeah,
here we go.
So final predictions. I think Dak will sign the franchise tag, play a year. If he gets hurt for 3 games or more, he's going to another team. I say the Steelers pick him up if that's the case. I think that'd be a good pickup.
You didn't want Jameis, but you want Dak's average-ass arm. Are you fucking serious?
Because he's not as lackadaisical with the football. And if
guess what? 5,000 yards and 32 touchdowns is pretty damn good for Jameis.
And he was blind.
If the
Yeah, and he was
defense can
blind.
hold up,
And he was
if the
blind.
defense can hold
LASIK,
up,
you can
Dak
see
can
now.
still produce. But anyway, so if Dak gets hurt, I could see him going to either Pittsburgh or another team, and Andy Dalton taking the starting role. If he doesn't, I think Dak will be the starter quarterback for the next 4 years for Dallas. That's my opinion.
Damn.
Wow. All right. This is kind of off the cuff, but I think Dak will be a Cowboy for one more year, and then he will go to the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Oh boy.
Really, Dave?
Mm.
I don't want to get into the whole draft position of the Jags next year, but I
Yeah.
feel like they're going to be pretty shitty this year. I think they're going to get a top 3 pick and get
I
a
know.
nice young quarterback.
Yeah, they'll probably tank for Trevor or your boy, Justin Fields. But, yeah, I know. Probably not the Jags, but I don't think Dak will be a Dallas Cowboy after the season. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
So,
I think he's going to try and hold out personally, but with all the Rona situation here, it doesn't really give the effect because OTAs are probably getting canceled. Everything's going to get canceled up to, I don't even know if they're going to do preseason, maybe just 1 or 2 games preseason. So a holdout's not going to do anything because they're not going to be there in person anyway. So if it was a different situation, I could see him holding out more. So I don't really see holding out working unless it goes into the regular season, which I don't really see.
I also don't really see holdout working for him since Dalton is his backup. Because, even though Dalton, if you might not think he's a Super Bowl or playoff, going, quarterback or whatever.
Still starting caliber.
Yeah, like he's still starting caliber and he's your backup. So you want to hold out, go ahead. We'll just put Dalton in. He just got off of a starting, yes, he was at Cincinnati, which the team sucked. But now he's here, which is is a better team. So it's like you want to hold out, whatever. We'll put Dalton in.
Well, since you're talking about Dalton possibly starting, what are your final thoughts? What do you think is going to happen?
I think that there's a good possibility of Dak staying the whole season, but I think too is that with Dalton in the back backing him up, I feel like a couple games. Where Dak is really struggling and he's playing like garbage, I don't think Jerry Jones or Mike McCarthy will have any issues with sitting him the next game and putting Dalton in.
Okay, so you think he's just going to be on the bench?
If he starts playing like shit.
Okay, yeah, that's a fair point.
What are you laughing at?
Oh no, I just love it. That's all.
All right, Aaron, what you got? What's
You'd be
your
a
final
great
thoughts?
coach. You'd be a great GM. That's all
I think he's gonna try and hold out until the last minute, but he's gonna show up so he doesn't miss any game checks with that because that franchise tag is still a shit ton more money than he's made his entire career so far.
Oh my god!
So he's definitely not gonna miss out on those game checks, and then he's gonna show up. And Dak's actually been good about not getting injured, so I actually don't even think Dalton's really going to get much play time on the field.
Okay. Well, there you have it. That's our opinions on not Dak, but Dalton in Dallas. So I think we have a furry friend down there, and I think he's just going to set us off. I think he's going to set us off on that.
Yeah, Dalton's best backup in the league, though.
True.
Besides James.
No, he said Dalton. He said Dalton. It's already
James.
And it's on recording. So
you can't forget Colt McCoy.
Oh God.
Who?
Colt McCoy. He's the Giants' backup, Sky. He's the Giants' backup.
Alrighty, well, that wraps it up for Dalton and Dallas. Feel free to comment below if you have any other possibly landing marks for Dak, considering the Dalton signing. So feel free to comment below, and we'll get back to you. But thanks for watching.
Bye.
Peace.